All right. Welcome again to the Goal Doctor podcast. Today we'll be talking about goals, mental effort, and motivation. I have a couple quotes here today. The first one is from a rap group that I heard a long time ago, and I wish I could get the precise wording on it. But if you know who they are, please let me know. And it says, "The sun does not rise and set. It has been where it is at the whole time." Once again, I'll say it again because some of y'all may have missed that. The sun does not rise and set. It has been where it is at the whole time. That's a matter of perception, right? And I'll give one other quote here from the late psychologist or counselor. His name is Dr. Wayne Dyer. And he said, "Change the way you look at things and the things you look at change." Once again, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. Right? Perception. Perception has a lot to do with our ability to engage mentally. And many different things can happen to a person that can keep them from being able to engage mentally, which their mental effort is an indicator of their motivation. Sometimes people cannot put all of their effort into doing one thing, whether it's learning, whether it's completing a task at work, whether it is following through with what they said they were going to do in their relationship with you. Sometimes that mental effort isn't there. And that could be due to trauma. That can be due to sometimes a learning disability, right? And like ADHD, or, they're having difficulty reading, like dyslexia or whatever. You've left them a note and you're assuming that they're catching everything you're giving them, but they're having difficulty sustaining their mental effort. It may look as if they don't care, or they're not able to get something done. Depression can also do that. And I'll talk about some of my challenges with that in just a moment. But our mental effort is an indicator of our motivation. And so let's get into that as we think about being motivated towards our goals. And I got a couple of stories here, or at least kind of the perspective that I had that needed to change. But it's a perspective that was developed when I was in elementary school. I mentioned last time I had a really rough time in middle school. Well, you can only imagine what elementary school was like because I was even less mature. So in elementary school, I had a rough time. And so as I think about these things, as I'm saying them, sometimes I'm kind of stuck back in that past. But let me see if I can get through it. Last time I talked about middle school, but from second through fifth grade, I really, really struggled with my own kind of temper and sense of how I connected with other people. Fourth grade was so bad. One day I was like kind of overcome. I was just feeling like really out of touch. And, I felt like kids were teasing me, and I really didn't know how to respond to a lot of the teasing that other kids were doing. I just wasn't raised like that to say yo mama jokes or just talk about people and teasing. I just have a hard time with that, still do to some degree. But I felt very out of place. So I found these stencils on the back of one of my older t-shirts, and I put it on the back of my t-shirts, "Don't touch me, I'm weird," right? And I felt really out of place. Because I was always in and out of the principal's office, this is what I felt like. I felt like I'm just a weird person and there's something wrong with me. And kids could push my buttons, and I felt I had to respond in kind or worse. So they would leave me alone. But that didn't happen. They didn't leave me alone because I was giving them a free show. And I always took it too far and ended up in the principal's office. And it really wasn't that I was even saying awful things back. Like I wanted to fight them. I wanted to hit them in the mouth or throw them on the ground or just yell so loud they would just leave me alone. And it was painful, man. One day my dad said something to me that changed my perspective. He said, "Why don't you unplug those buttons? If you're tired of them pushing your buttons, unplug them." Man, I had to think about it. So when they call you a name, unplug the button by saying to yourself, "They are not worth it." Because I'd already spent a bunch of time in the principal's office. Way too much time in the principal's office. So I had to say, "They're not worth it." And I had to say it to myself first, and every once in a while I'd say it out loud. "You're not worth it." And I had to practice the hand motion, like pushing them away. "You're not worth it." That helped significantly. Now, I didn't stop going to the principal's office right away. as I told you, there were problems in middle school, but it was a whole lot less. Because at one point in between 2nd through 4th grade, I was going pretty much every week. Man. And I still had a feeling something was wrong with me. So even as I made it all the way through high school, through college, even my first start as my career as a school psychologist, there was a deep, dark part of me that felt I was kind of irredeemable. And as an adult, I had my first depressive episode that I could recall, and I knew I needed to get help for. It was a rough year. And as I looked back upon it, it was full of secondary trauma. I saw whole families getting arrested, right? I saw and filed a lot of child abuse reports after kids had been beaten by their families. Sometimes some of these families were pastors. Man, I'm just pausing on it because I'm kind of reliving some of it. And I talked to some kids who had seen their families killed, right? And my therapist asked me, because I was telling him about my depressive symptoms, and my therapist asked me, he said, have you felt this way recently, or how long have you felt this way? And I really had to pause and think. I'm like, whew, man, I've always felt this way. And the time that I can remember originally, like being aware of it, was that 4th grade, where I felt weird and out of place, right? And going through those depressive symptoms. Now, I don't have enough time to get into like all the depressive symptoms or other things, but I want you to understand there was something within my mind, the perception within my mind that there was something wrong with me. And I saw my high sensitivity as a curse. I saw those depressive symptoms as a curse. I still was somewhat that little boy who felt that way, yet here I am, this psychologist, and really trying to help other kids not feel that way. So I talked to a friend of mine who is also a psychologist, and he suggested, and here's the perceptive change, right? He suggested perhaps your high sensitivity to injustice and people's pain is what makes you a good psychologist. I'll say that again. Perhaps my high sensitivity is what made me a good psychologist. I never thought about my own challenges as being a gift. Man, my perspective changed. I have a gift that needs to be nurtured and not treated like a curse. Perhaps your learning disability, perhaps that trauma you went through is something that may be able to help other people. Or it may be the thing that makes you so unique. It's a gift compared to everybody else in your family, compared to everybody else that you know, but it's the thing that makes you you. That changed me, right? And it allowed me to feel free to be who I was. Even I was in almost my mid-30s when it really kind of coalesced and I understood it's okay. It's okay to be who I am. So, what can changing perspective do for our mental effort? Well, one, we talked about choice. So if we chain these two together, if we perceive our choice in a situation, we can also look at our gifts and begin with our strengths. So first, it's okay to recognize it's all right to get help. If you had a past trauma, if you had a learning disability, if you had a stressful life situation, if any of those things are getting you down at school, work, or even on the internet where most of us are kind of residing, just the fact that we can't have that human touch, whatever it is, it's okay to seek help. That's the first thing I want us to get out of all of this, right? When we get stuck, that's what makes us human, is making those connections. But these latter two pieces, these last two, I really want you to understand too. Changing our perspective to focus on what can be done based upon your strengths gives you hope. Hope gives you purpose, and purpose helps you focus. I'm going to say it again because I really want you to understand. Changing perspective to focus on what can be done based upon your strength gives you hope, and hope gives you purpose, and purpose helps you focus. It helps clear your mind of a lot of those other things that really, and I'm saying things, really negative self-talk that you may have about a gift that you may have. your depression is high sensitivity as well. And it's just kind of out of alignment. You got to be able to get that back aligned. And man, that power that you have to be empathetic with other people. Your learning disability might hone some other really fine sense, right? And I've talked to some people who have recently become blind. They're able to tell me that, yeah, my hearing, I have to use my hearing. It's become better. Now, I'm not saying that every challenge is a gift. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna or happy about it. But I'm saying that there are times where you need to see what's your strength and begin to build upon your strength. So the second thing, right? So the first one is change your perspective. The second was here. Once you are aware that most times a challenge you may be having with mental effort does not mean you are weird or strange. It means you are human. And remember, humans need good humans to help them. Take the help and ease your cognitive, or what we call our brain load. So your mental effort is able to be clear and you're able to give all of your mental effort as an indicator of your own motivation. Because really, you need to be able to be motivated for yourself. Man, yeah, I'm just pausing on that because I'm kind of speaking to myself yet again. Sometimes going back into those old stories and those old traumas, right, reactivates your brain, right? And you may even hear me pausing. That's what happens to our brain when we're kind of stuck on a prior trauma or we're stuck on a perception that has us locked into a small box. It's all right to have someone push us a little bit, or at least support us and guide us as we go through some hard times. Okay. Man, time is moving. And so I just want to say next time we'll talk about developing skills at persistence towards our goals, right? And so this has been kind of part of our motivation towards our goals discussion, man. Everything's about our goals. Everything's about hitting our goals. But I really want us to think about persistence. So we've talked about active choice. Today we've talked about mental effort. And next week we'll talk about persistence. But I really want us to be able to move through those so we understand these indicators towards motivation, because I really want to get into like what people do, what they think motivation is. Again, that's another way to change your perspective and your perception of life. All right. Thanks for listening. I'm the Goal Doctor, Brandon Gamble, and I hope you enjoy each moment in the journey as you continue to reach your goals.